I'm a resident of Petersfield. I'm not speaking on behalf of any organisation. If one thing is to achieve consensus, it's that public transport needs massive improvement and that this should be done through franchising to end the current stagecoach monopoly. Those unable to afford a car are highly dependent on an ever-dwindling bus system, especially in rural areas. Those at the income level just above are forced to spend thousands for a car they can barely afford. Those too young to drive and many others have little transport independence. And those who can afford a car and businesses sit in traffic congestion, wasting time and money. These cannot continue. As an example, 2 days ago, while shopping on Mill Road, I observed a bus stuck in traffic, mostly single occupant cars. It took a staggering 14 minutes to travel less than 500 metres. That's a third of Mill Road, and I have photos of this. This is intolerable. Modern cities do not tolerate buses stuck in car traffic. Both congestion reduction and funding for public transport are necessary. The hard fact is that improving public transport under franchising requires a subsidy income stream from somewhere, and there are only really two routes that raise enough funding: a congestion charge or a workplace parking levy, which taxes large businesses. The report for the February 2020 Exec Board meeting stated that a workplace parking levy would raise around 23 million annually. At a joint assembly meeting months ago, I asked why workplace parking levy was not being pursued. And the answer given was that workplace parking levies can raise revenue and reduce traffic, but on a smaller scale than the proposed STZ. However, the paper in front of you now proposes a smaller STZ to raise only 33 million. So it and the workplace parking levy are now in the same ballpark and should be considered side by side. So the answer given last time is irrelevant. A workplace parking levy has already seen surprisingly high levels of support from both sides of this debate, including even the South Cambs Conservative MP. It would be a much simpler scheme, has no significant regressive effects, and it will be one of the few ways of taxing the growth industries which exacerbate the congestion problem. So I ask that the workplace parking levy be put firmly back on the agenda and delivery considered quickly. Thank you.
And then to Mr. Lucas Smith on workplace parking. I would just challenge that point about receiving widespread support. It has been our experience through consultation, previous consultations, that a workplace parking levy is less supported than road user charging. Of course, it's possible that opinions have shifted over time, but it's definitely not the case that everyone is sort of uncritically supportive of that. The issue with workplace parking that we found in previous technical studies is that it would raise less money than a road user charge and would achieve relatively negligible traffic reduction. So the problem that you cited of buses being stuck on Mill Road wouldn't be solved simply by raising money to invest in public transport. Unless you have something to deter demand, then that problem will remain. There is quite a lot of flexibility actually on the revenue that you could raise by a workplace parking levy, depending on how it's defined. I'd flag that 23 million figure you quoted was actually a package of various parking interventions, including a workplace parking levy set at £10 a day. In terms of your point about not having any negative impacts, there are sort of two scenarios with a workplace parking levy. Either the business choose to absorb the cost, in which case you're right, it doesn't have much effect on individual people, but it also doesn't have much demand management impact on reducing traffic. Or businesses choose, as they have a right to do, to pass the cost on to individuals who are using the spaces, in which case it would have broadly the same impact on those individuals as would Sustainable Travel Zone charge of an equivalent size. And finally, it's just worth flagging as a point of information that if the board were to ask us to proceed with thinking about something like that, unlike an STZ, a workplace parking levy can't be decided locally and would require final permission from the Secretary of State to proceed.